In 1992, the Falcons' home record is impeccable. 2 wins from as many matches, but their away form reads 1-3. Their last outing, a bit of a flogging from another team north of the border, the Brisbane Bullets.
We had a disastrous second quarter, got ourselves down 19 at halftime and couldn't come back from that. So yes, we were disappointed, but the way Brisbane played on the night, they were always going to be tough to beat there.
The Rollers have only suffered the one loss this year to the Sydney Kings and have already had 2 wins over the Falcons. And their awesome scoring potential is of major concern.
No easy game in the league this year, so we're at home. We're happy to be at home, and we are unbeaten at home. We hope to keep that intact. We feel we can beat the Rollers here in Newcastle, but we're going to have to play very, very well to do it. We don't want to give Gold Coast 125 points again, which is what they scored the last time. If we can hold them down to the 110 or less, it'll be a good ball game.
And for former Rollers Tom Weisman and Paul Kuiper, added incentive to win.
The Gold Coast, for me, is a game that I would personally like to win. Paul, I'm sure, feels the same way. Al felt very good when we beat Adelaide, so maybe this will be our turn.
Hang on. It's a question I've been too embarrassed to ask, but I need to know the answer.
Hang on, I'm rolling here.
Nearly 20,000 fans braved the freezing conditions, and Johnny Schuster gave them plenty to cheer. Former Novocastrian Derek McVeigh knew he'd made a blue. 10 in the bin for a professional foul, and Schuster made no mistake. With a howling breeze at their backs, the Knights attacked. Benny Elias backed up for the Tigers from the state of origin and fooled everyone with this run, including the referee, milking the penalty to perfection. 2 minutes later, the Knights' defence fell apart. The Tigers were on a roll and Sinclair was allowed to do what he liked. And what a conversion! To add further pressure, Elias emulated Alfie Langer. Just before the break, the Knights hit back through Ashley Gordon. .11-10 at Oranges, and Paul Marquardt wished he had have stayed in the shed. Sam Stewart tried to get a desperate Knights outfit going forward, but more often than not they were defending grimly. However, they did go close to scoring. But that was it. Some scrappy play summing up a dismal night for the Knights as they fumbled their way to a 3rd straight loss, and the Tigers winning for the first time at Marathon Stadium. For the mums and dads, no greater joy than seeing their pride and joy lace up the boots, pull on the jumper and terrorise the opposition with a scintillating run for the try line. But the best thing about junior football is seeing the kids have so much fun, with the scoreline immaterial. And adding further thrills for the schoolboys, Penrith's Graham Lyons lent a hand in coaching.
So it's a big boost for the kids and a boost for players as well. You know, if the kids recognise them straight off the bat, well, you know, there's an even bigger boost for them.
For the organisers, a reduction in the number of teams didn't detract from the standard.
From what I've seen so far, especially with the young 7s and 8s and 9-year-olds that I've seen, the standard is quite good. And I think a lot of that reflects on the standards of coaching and the accreditation schemes that have been introduced where coaches and parents and teachers now sort of gaining accreditation and gaining the skills necessary, and it's showing in the children.
With every match watched either in the big time or at this level, there is always a favourite moment. This is ours. Watch for the young Artie Beetson look-alike. Eat your heart out, Wally. We're after the title of Kings of League. Various events are being conducted from males to seniors, women's, juniors and the open division in surf that had everyone raving. Solid 4 to 5 foot sets pumping through and providing lefts and rights for the 160 surfers. Trent Munro, Adam Ratcliffe, Martin Brunkmeyer and Bruce Hutchison all turned in excellent heat performances, relishing the good surf. Port Macquarie's Justin Walsh was another to impress and he advanced to the next round without too much trouble. But as with many sports, there's always the hard luck story, and today it belonged to Matt Schofield. Schofield was sensational during his heat with this massive floater that had everyone gasping in awe. His second ride was also a ripper and Schofield looked certain to head on to higher honours. Then this, an interference call on Schofield and the hot shot was disqualified. The finals are set down for tomorrow.
With Casino's RSM packed to capacity, the first official function of the 12-day Beef Week got underway. The function, the crowning of the Beef Week Queen, a quest that saw 12 girls compete for the title. To be in the running, the girls were nominated by a cattle breed society, each contestant representing a separate group. As part of the competition, the girls must judge the cattle and display a good overall knowledge of the meat industry. As ambassador for Casino, Fiona will represent the meat industry and local area at various functions. But first duties are to reign over the remaining activities in Beef Week. The walk against wilderness in the main street of Glen Innes not only saw members of forest-based industries voice their concern over the Wilderness Act, it involved the entire community. The protesters say the 1987 Act could lead to the locking up of thousands of hectares of public and private forests, costing those in the timber industry their jobs.
Wilderness is just locked up, becomes basically unproductive, and all we're waiting for then is for a huge wildfire to rip through there.
Today's rally that continued into the town hall gave those in power, such as Member for Northern Tablelands Ray Chappell, Member for Coffs Harbour Andrew Fraser and representatives from Forestry and Soil Conservation, a chance to get their views across.
It is certainly going to cost jobs, going to take away from the local economy, grazing rights will be restricted, logging will be restricted.
Accompanied by a barrage of minders, Premier Greiner entered the Maitland Town Hall to a thunderous applause from the party faithful. It's been a difficult week for the Premier, who's facing increasing heat at the ICAC inquiry into the appointment of former MP Terry Metherell to a public service job. There's no doubt the Metherell affair has rocked the foundations of the Liberal government. With increasing speculation his leadership is under threat, Mr Greiner today urged the party to unite. That, he said, was the real test.
I compared the Liberal Party to a family. I think that's right. And families stick together through thick and thin.
But all families feud, and there are whispers in the government that Premier Greiner may not lead the party in the next few months. Keeping a brave face though, Mr Greiner spoke of the government's achievements during the last year, today being the first birthday of the government's second term in office. He also stressed the need to get on with the job of governing the state.
We need to focus on the achievements of the past, then focus on where we're going to go and get on with the job. And that is precisely what I propose to do, and I've got no doubt it's precisely what the Liberal Party proposes to do in New South Wales.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Thank you very much. I'll give you a receipt for that. Where's the police?
You did it. Thanks a lot. Andy, trust you to get me into this. No, can I just give you 5? Is that
Sure.
alright? That's realistic.
What surname was it?
Partridge. Yeah.
We'll let the dog out. Run down the road after it.
The so-called scandalous condition of Hunter schools hit the headlines this morning. Teachers cited a lack of carpets and shade facilities, as well as leaky classrooms and poor maintenance as the main areas of concern. A Teachers Federation survey targeted Maitland schools as some of the worst off.
They're talking about leaking roofs which crop up after every shower of rain. I'm sure that isn't just with school buildings, it happens in all sorts of buildings. They're talking about that, but they're not telling you that Maitland's had more capital works since 1984 that I know of than any other part of New South Wales. Maitland's the most marginal electorate in New South Wales. It's obvious that they're targeting the Maitland electorate for that reason.
The teachers also claimed that parents and citizens groups' funds were being spent on building maintenance and that poorer areas were being disadvantaged. The department conceded it relied on community input to help maximise the use of what funds were available, often getting jobs done more quickly and cheaply than waiting for handouts.
I'd invite you to come to the Maitland schools anytime you like, and I'll show you the high quality of learning that's taking place in our classrooms up there. It's a great tribute to the schools and to the teachers in them, and this particular teachers' union isn't doing those teachers justice by talking this way about what's happening there.
Lesson number 1, getting a seat on a Japanese bullet train. That's how the group will get about on their 2-week study tour from the south to the north of Japan. Travellers have 1 minute to board the crowded carriages before the doors close and the trains speed on their way. Orientation camps are being held at the Education Department's Japanese Immersion Centre at Martinsville, west of Lake Macquarie. The students will be home hosted in Japan and are expected to observe local customs and eat local cuisine.
The seriousness of the injury and the howls of agony had people literally fainting. A dislocated kneecap and a lengthy operation to wire the tendons back on the patella has 209 centimetre tall Paul Kuiper flat on his back in hospital. And it couldn't have come at a worse time. Against the Rollers, Kuiper was in excellent form until his demise early in the second quarter.
One of the most disappointing injuries I think I've ever had. Playing against my old team, and we were ahead, and thought everyone was playing well, and it's just something that's furthest from your mind that you're going to get injured. you can never know. The body heals at its own pace, but I would hopefully say in 4 months' time I'll be back in time for the playoffs.
The Rollers won the match in the last seconds of the game, but made two tremendous comebacks after being down by 10 and 9 stages of the match.
What do you reckon? Go for it, Bevo. Say when, mate.
Despite the autumn chill in Canberra last night, 150 Northern District miners gripped outside Parliament House, calling for the federal government to do more to help their industry. On the Parliament lawns, they found a common voice in this group of not-so-jolly swagmen who are fighting for their shearing jobs.
Thanks for your support. You're welcome to mill around the camp and have a beer and a good time.
In the morning light, the miners returned, drilled like an army in their movements and their message. But with their path blocked by carloads of police, the miners cried out for not only work, but a meeting with parliamentarians. 3 Hunter MPs came out to speak to the throng, but some miners made it clear they wanted more than words.
It's about time we stopped the rhetoric and we got those policies for a national coal platform and for the protection of our workers and our communities.
It's a demand the Minister for Road Transport, Bob Brown, apparently heeded.
If we don't get satisfaction, then the next time I won't be just addressed, join the demonstration.
A delegation of the Mine Workers Federation got past the barricades for a meeting with Primary Industries Minister Simon Crean. The union wanted the minister's backing for a number of proposals, including a National Coal Control Board and a retraining program. But President Mick Watson came out of the meeting disappointed, saying the minister was non-committal and doesn't seem to be aware that this issue is a time bomb ticking.
It's one thing to understand the problem, it's another to come up with the solutions. And I've indicated to the coal miners that there are certain things that they need to come back to me on. And when I've got that information, I'll get an answer to them.
While the miners pushed for a more secure future, they also remembered the present crisis in the industry. With the flagpole acting as a cenotaph, a group held a commemorative service for mines that have closed and jobs lost. The Mine Workers Federation believes this Canberra campaign has been a success, but the Hunter miners warn that if the federal government doesn't do more to bolster their ailing industry, they'll return to the national capital, and next time they won't have 150 men, but 10 times that number. In Canberra, Scott Bevan, NBN News.
This year, Australia will produce an estimated 2 million bales of cotton, worth at least $700 million in seed. New South Wales accounts for 3 in every 4 of those dollars. Agriculture and Rural Affairs Minister Ian Armstrong believes the establishment of this $920,000 facility is a show of confidence in the cotton industry's future growth.
CGS are the major chemical suppliers to the industry, and it not only recognises chemical supply but a new expertise in management and in the whole usage of control mechanisms for the cotton industry.
It's taken 6 months to build the plant, which includes special emergency stations as well as storage areas for bulk and flammable woods. While officially opening the facility today, Mr Armstrong predicted that cotton, one of our largest export earners, could reap some benefit from the EC's abolition of subsidies, but not in the short term.
I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think it's going to take some years. But in the meantime, might I say, I still think we should look at our own backyard. We can't lower our own defences, and I'm still very keen to see us with a system of countervailing duties where necessary, infrastructure of producing and processing in place until such time as we reach this utopian field of zero tariffs.
For hundreds of people in the Hunter Valley, this may be considered a no-go zone, but with developing technologies, the library can be used by almost anyone. Machines like this personal reader give the blind, dyslexic or those with brain injuries easy access to the written word. An optical scanner actually reads the book. At a special needs expo at Charlestown Library, the latest gear was displayed for the disabled. Personal computers for the blind, telephones for the deaf.
It means they have a far greater access to information now, and it puts them in control of their own lives.
Just turning the page on a book can be hard for some. This device takes out the work, perfect for the elderly or those recovering after a stroke. The State Library of New South Wales can give advice to anyone who needs tips on keeping in touch with technology. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The campaign to have smoking banned in public places began in Newcastle 4 years ago. The prime mover, Alderman Don Geddes. Now his predictions have come true. Employers are being forced to look at imposing smoke-free zones in order to protect their staff and customers.
I thought it was going to be difficult, but I believe now it is achievable, and I believe now that the majority of people in the community want it.
As far as council's concerned, Alderman Geddes says he'll now make certain a smoking ban on all council facilities is enforced.
There has been a motion passed in council last year, I think it was, where we indicated that the City Hall and any other council location would be smoke-free. Unfortunately, I believe that we haven't been enforcing that in relation to the City Hall. It needs to be enforced, and I'll be making certain it is enforced.
For the private sector, though, the issue is not so cut and dry. Take Western Suburbs Leagues Club, the Hunter's biggest registered club, where staff are continuously exposed to cigarette smoke.
I am concerned for the employees of this club and the employees of the club and hotel industry.
Manager Bob Ferris is also Vice President of the Registered Clubs Association. He says it would be impossible for individual clubs to ban smoking and says it's up to the government to act.
The only way it could work successfully, and it will happen one day, is for the government to bite the bullet, to realise why they're elected and to make hard decisions and to legislate for non-smoking in public areas.
To the world, Japan may be known as the land of the rising sun, but to many Australian businesses, it's the land of rising profits. And so to export-dependent regions like the Hunter, that makes our largest trading partner a land of rising allure.
Whether you like it or not, I think Australia needs Japan somehow, and Japan also needs Australia for raw materials and so on. It's mutually beneficial.
But Japan is not only attractive to everyone from businesses to students to local government, it's a mystery. The language, the customs, the business ethics all pose a challenge. And that's where the University of Newcastle's Japan Centre will help out.
One of the important roles for university is to go out to the community and to cooperate with the community.
A liaison committee that includes businesses, councils and the uni has been developing the idea of a Japan Centre for more than a year. Newcastle Lord Mayor John McNaughton believes the centre will provide a vital link for understanding between the Hunter and Japan.
We have a very close association with Japan through the City of Newcastle, and Japan is one of the major sources of tourists in the world. And to have a source like that within our city, which will bring many Japanese people here, is an obvious asset.
The Japan Centre is expected to be operating by the end of the year under the directorship of Professor Kiyoharu Ono. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The bishop was looking for a show of support for what has become a personal crusade for the ordination of women priests. The issue has caused dissension in the church, landing it with litigations and Supreme Court appeals. In Western Australia, priests have walked off the job in protest of the push for women priests. The 300 delegates, including women deacons from the Hunter, Central and Mid-North coasts, entered into a lengthy debate over the ordinations.
It's very important that I think each diocese and their 24 dioceses say clearly where they stand about this matter, so that when the national body meets, it's got some understanding of what is going on at the grassroots of the church.
But those opposed to the ordinations claim that the Synod has overstepped its authority and the issue could only be resolved at national level. Some are facing a moral dilemma about working in a church which they say ignores its own laws.
I know that there may be some who, if the situation arises that women are in fact ordained to the priesthood, may feel that they can no longer remain within the church. This causes a great deal of problem because there could be cases in equity for compensation.
A few out-of-work priests may soon of the unemployed, the other main area focused on by Synod. The outspoken bishop has fired a broadside at all levels of government, claiming that not enough effort is being put into job creation programs, and as a result, there is now a growing underclass of the unemployed.
I get fed up sometimes when I see politicians ignoring this issue and producing others to cover it up. But I think all politicians should be saying to us what are their strategies, what are their policies about unemployment and employment.
Casino Showground was the venue for today's National Cattle Dog Trials, the event part of the Beef Week Festival. More than 100 cattle dogs and their owners competed in the novice and open sections, some travelling from as far away as the Queensland border and Tenterfield to display their stockmanship. During the trial, each competitor instructs their dog to manoeuvre the cattle through a series of obstacles. Points are deducted for rule infringements. The aim is to lose the least amount of points and complete the course within the set time limit, at times proving a frustrating task. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Australians are not eating enough fish. According to research being done by Professor David Roberts of Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital, we should have 2 fish meals a week.
And we know we have too much heart disease in our community, and fish are another one of those foods in our armoury to help with preventing coronary disease.
Oily fish are the most beneficial, in particular mullet, snapper and Atlantic salmon. The fish doesn't have to be fresh. A can of tuna or salmon is just as good for you. Ironically, if everyone took the advice and ate 2 fish meals a week, there wouldn't be enough fish in the sea to satisfy the demand.
Well, we have to stop just hunting fish. We farm animals, we need to farm fish in order to have an adequate supply.
Police cordoned off the site near a concrete weir over Cockle Creek on Racecourse Road, southwest of Newcastle. He remained where it had been dragged from the water by a motorist using the popular shortcut between Barnsley and Terralba at about 6:40 this morning. Police quickly established that the body was that of a male of average height in his mid-20s or early 30s.
We have suspicion in relation to his injuries, which are mainly head injuries and abrasions to the rest of the body. And the time of day and the location obviously led us to believe that it was unnatural causes.
The body was clad in only a pair of underpants and 2 black T-shirts. Police say the sluggish current combined with the fact that the victim was only partially dressed lead them to believe he may have been dumped from a passing car as recently as last night. Hoping that clothing might have been concealed in surrounding scrub, police made a sweep through the undergrowth. A pair of shoes were retrieved. However, detectives say they were different to the victim's foot size. Members of the police rescue squad used a runabout to comb the banks of Cockle Creek but failed to find anything. Police divers are expected to take up the search this evening. However, police aren't expecting to find a weapon.
Well, we haven't found one. The examination of the body doesn't seem to be consistent with the weapon used.
A post-mortem was conducted on the body at Newcastle Morgue this afternoon. Police are also checking fingerprint files. So far, no one has been reported missing, but police suspect the man was a local person. Whoever disposed of his body almost certainly had local knowledge. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Students from 9 Hunter high schools competed in the Shakespeare Festival regional final. It's a national event staged to celebrate the Bard, and these students have been brushing up their Shakespeare for months.
They've already held their own festival at school, called the In-School Festival. Then they come together here today to present one of 4 different strands in music or design or a duologue or a scene. And they also present at an interview level their own thoughts on the play and how they got to that stage with their interpretation of characters and so forth.
Selected students will go on to the state final and have the chance to win a trip to London in the national final. The competition isn't limited to performance though. Those who'd prefer to stay behind the scenes are given a chance in the music and design sections.
They take a particular scene in the case of design and work through the whole costuming side and the set design and so forth to present the play to the public. And in the case of music, they compose something to go with a particular scene in a play.
Understandably, competition was fierce, and with performances like this from 17-year-old Tina Lake from Nelson Bay High School, the Hunter looks assured of a rich theatrical future.